where Prime Minister Narendra Modi is holding bilateral with Bangladesh. Sheikh Hasina can be seen at 7 LKM. There is obviously that personal connect. The Prime Minister, even during pandemic, continued his equations and relationships with the neighbors, putting the neighborhood first as the biggest mantra of his foreign policy. Let me bring in my guests now. Saurabh Shukla is joining me live. Mr. Banik Maitra is Managing Partner, India and South Asia, Arthur D. Little. Saurabh, coming to you first. When we look at these visuals, I often emphasize on the fact that that personal connect, that personal capital that Prime Minister Modi puts on these bilateral meetings, that equations that he builds, that certainly play a role in also diplomatic solutions.
Absolutely, Maria. In fact, I can tell you that Prime Minister Modi has invested heavily in some of these relationships. You see the visuals right now with Sheikh Hasina. That's a friendship that he has nurtured over the years. And I would say one of the strongest partnerships India has today in the neighborhood is with Bangladesh. And both the nations realize the economic benefits of it, of a political benefit of being with each other, and also making sure that you set aside differences and talk to each other. And personal chemistry, I can tell you, having covered diplomacy for a long time, plays a pivotal role in finding solutions, finding creative solutions to problems, because often the political leadership is what can solve certain problems which diplomats or negotiators cannot.
Yes.
And that's what has happened with many countries. You will see later this evening when US President Joe Biden arrives. I was there in Washington, D.C., and I can tell you the kind of chemistry Prime Minister has struck with him as well, the US President. That's, again, phenomenal. And that demonstrates the resolute, the intensity of the partnership that has followed. Because personal chemistry helps tides over solutions, sometimes which the diplomats or bureaucrats cannot do. Because political leadership and political will is required to settle some of the problem. I'll give you an example. WTO. India and the US had a big tussle happening at the World Trade Organization. It was sorted out that
there seems to be some problem with that line with Saurabh. We'll try and reconnect with him. But Dr. Maitra, Mr. Maitra, when we look at these visuals, it's also a relationship of great investment. I would emphasize on that, and also the kind of plans and sorting out of differences. The treaties that have been inked in the last few years of both their leadership. And when Saurabh says, and I tend to agree with him about the personal chemistry, the great investment that's needed here, there is that neighborhood first that the Prime Minister has emphasized, Prime Minister Modi, in all these 9 years.
So I think the G20 is the prime example where actually India is evolving its foreign policy from what has been a very strong position in the neighborhood to something which will be a leadership position amongst the global south. I think the fact that we have deep ties with several neighbors, and they're not immediate neighbors. If you look at the partnerships we have with the Middle Eastern countries, I think that is also testament to India's growing power globally. When you look at investments and alliances, I think I'm particularly heartened by the fact that I think in the G20 Summit tomorrow, India will launch like 3 major multilateral initiatives, like the Global Biofuel Alliance, the Middle East Infrastructure Corridor, which is a corridor for bilateral investment, and the Global Partnership for Infrastructure, which is very important. So I think there's a lot to take away from what will happen for India. And this is where I think the spotlight is on India as not only a good country to host the G20, but also a future force and a future pole of an increasingly multipolar world where India can be the voice of global south in the global forum.
All right, Dr. Maitra and Saurabh, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.